You're lying in bed right now, replaying something you said 3 hours ago. Maybe it was a comment in a meeting. Maybe it was a joke that landed wrong. Maybe it was nothing, just a look someone gave you that you can't stop turning over in your mind. And you know it's irrational. You know it doesn't matter. And yet your brain will not let it go. But the real answer to why this happens is far stranger than you think. It has nothing to do with insecurity. It has nothing to do with low self-esteem. It has everything to do with the fact that your brain was never built for the world you're living in. It was built for something much older, something much more dangerous. Let's go back. Not a few decades, not a few centuries, about 150,000 years. You are a human being and you are standing on a flat, open grassland in what will one day be called East Africa. You have no weapons worth mentioning, no claws, no speed. You are by almost every biological measure not impressive. But you have something no other animal has developed to the same degree. Other people, your group, your tribe, 10, maybe 30, maybe 50 individuals who know your name, who watch your behavior, who decide every single day whether you are useful, trustworthy, and worth keeping around. Here is what the anthropologist Robin Dunbar discovered when he studied the relationship between primate brain size and social group size. The neocortex, the thinking, reasoning part of the brain, scales almost perfectly with how many social relationships an animal can track. The bigger the social group, the bigger the neocortex needs to be. And human beings, Dunbar found, are built to track about 150 relationships simultaneously. Not thousands, not millions. 150 specific, nuanced, constantly updating social assessments. His research, published in the early 1990s, pointed to something radical. The human brain may have evolved not primarily to solve physical problems, but to solve social ones. Think about what that means. Your brain's greatest evolutionary achievement is not language, not fire, not tools. It is the ability to model what other people are thinking about you, right now, in real time, constantly. And in the ancient world, this was not a quirk, it was survival. If your tribe concluded that you were lazy, that you were a liar, that you were not pulling your weight, you were cast out. And cast out meant dead. Not metaphorically dead, not socially awkward. Dead, dead. Alone on the savannah, with no shelter, no food-sharing network, no one to watch your back while you slept. Rejection by the group was, for virtually all of human history, a death sentence. Your nervous system learned this lesson so completely that it built an entire alarm system around the threat of social exclusion. The psychologist Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA ran a study in 2003 that changed how scientists understand social pain. Participants were placed in an fMRI scanner and asked to play a simple computer game, a game of catch, with 2 other players. At a certain point, the other players stopped throwing the ball to the participant. They were excluded, left out of the game. And what lit up in the brain? The dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, the same region that processes physical pain, the same region that fires when you break your arm or burn your hand. Social rejection, Eisenberger's study showed, is not a metaphor for pain. It is pain. Your brain processes it through the same neural hardware as a physical wound. So when you're lying in bed at 2 a.m., replaying that awkward thing you said, your brain is not being dramatic. It is running a threat assessment. It is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It is trying to figure out whether what happened today puts your place in the group at risk, whether you are still safe, whether you still belong. The problem is, the math is completely wrong now. In the ancient world, the consequences of social judgment were immediate and concrete. Either you were accepted or you were not. Either you found food tomorrow or you didn't. The feedback loop was fast and the stakes were real. Today, your brain is running that same software on a world that operates at a completely different scale. You are not being evaluated by 30 people who will decide whether you eat. You are being observed, potentially, by thousands of strangers on the internet who will never affect your survival in any meaningful way. And yet your amygdala, the brain's threat detection system, cannot tell the difference. A negative comment on a post activates the same alarm as a disapproving look from a tribal elder. Your nervous system escalates both to the same threat level. The researcher Mark Leary, a social psychologist who has spent decades studying self-esteem and social behavior, proposed something called sociometer theory in the mid-1990s. The idea is this: self-esteem is not primarily about how you feel about yourself. It is a gauge, a real-time meter that tracks your perceived level of social acceptance. When the meter drops, you feel bad, not because something bad happened to you, but because your brain is registering a potential drop in social standing and firing off the same alarm it would have fired 100,000 years ago when that drop in standing meant danger. In other words, what you call low self-esteem is your ancient social radar telling you to pay attention. But here's where it gets stranger. The system doesn't just track what people actually think of you. It predicts, it anticipates, it runs simulations. This is the part that keeps you up at night, the part that makes you imagine negative reactions that haven't happened and may never happen. You rehearse conversations, you pre-experience rejection, you mentally model how 10 different people might interpret one sentence you said. This capacity
capacity, called mentalizing by neuroscientists, was an extraordinary advantage in a small, tight-knit group where predicting how others would react to your actions could mean the difference between cooperation and conflict, acceptance and exile.
But in the modern world, this same mental machinery runs on overdrive because the social landscape is now infinite. You are not tracking 150 people. You are exposed to thousands of evaluations, reactions, opinions, and judgments from sources your brain cannot properly contextualize. It keeps running the simulations. It keeps modeling the responses. It never gets the signal that says, you are safe. You are in the group. You can stop now. The result is a species that is chronically socially anxious in a way that has no real precedent in our evolutionary past. Not because something is wrong with you, because you are running ancient software on a world your ancestors could not have imagined. Here is the part you need to understand, though. The people you are most worried about judging you, they are running the exact same system. They are lying awake thinking about what you think of them. They are replaying their own awkward moments. They are running their own threat assessments, their own simulations, their own preemptive rejections. The social anxiety you feel is not evidence that others are constantly watching and evaluating you. It is evidence that you are human, and so are they.
The philosopher David Hume, writing in the 18th century, observed that human beings are deeply, inescapably social creatures, that our very sense of self is formed in relation to others. He was not speaking in the language of neuroscience, but the modern research backs him up in ways he could never have anticipated. Your identity, your self-concept, the internal narrative of who you are, all of it was built through the eyes of other people. You learned who you were by watching how others responded to you, and your brain never fully let go of that external mirror. This is why criticism stings in a place that feels deeper than the criticism deserves. It's why praise can feel like oxygen. It's why being ignored can feel worse than being yelled at. Yourself is not a private interior object. It was built for an audience. It was constructed in relationship, and it never stopped needing one. But knowing this changes something. When you catch yourself spiraling over what someone thinks of you, you are not weak. You are not broken. You are experiencing one of the oldest, most deeply wired survival programs in the human nervous system. A program that kept your ancestors alive, kept them connected, kept them in the group when being out of the group meant death.
The question is not how to turn it off. The question is whether you can recognize it for what it is. A very old alarm, built for a world that no longer exists, running in a mind that still believes the stakes are as high as they once were. Tonight, when the replay starts and your brain pulls you back into that moment you wish you could undo, you can hear it differently now. Not as proof that something is wrong with you, but as the sound of 150,000 years of survival instinct still doing its job in a world it was never built for. You never needed to stop caring what people think. You just needed to know why you never could.